The At Your Insta podcast is brought to you by Comic Town. Check them out at www.comictown.net or search for Comic Town Gaming Center on Facebook. Hello, and welcome to At Your Insta. My name is Morgan, and I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah, not sick.
Mike and I are sick.
I brought this scourge upon us, and I apologize.
Mike is a plague bear.
I am. We're at Dave's home, though, and I've been secretly licking things all across his house.
It's true.
So the man will be sick before long.
It's only a matter of time.
Sick.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. You know my wife is like 8 months pregnant, right?
Well, after you get sick, I'll clean everything.
Fact.
Besides,
I don't think it works that way.
She's got super immunity right now. She's got immunity for 2. I know a lot about babies.
I'm sure you do. Yeah. Sounds like it.
Anyway, we have a fun, if subdued episode for you this week. It's
a subbed episode. You can look for the look at your podcast app, and you'll see the subtitles. We've dubbed them in there for you.
Subbing and dubbing are two different things.
So we've subbed them in, and then we're dubbing our own voices.
You could also subscribe.
If you could see the video of us, this wouldn't look right.
Correct. None of the mouth motions would match the actual words, and nor would the subtitles. So it would just be all messed up. Which, if I had to put that together, it would be messed up. Because I am not in my right mind at this point in time. The sickness, it has affected me.
Morgan is officially down with the sickness.
That's true.
We've made that joke on here before.
It doesn't matter.
It wasn't funny the first time.
It's always funny.
Someone laughed.
I think I might have been you.
Probably. But we obviously went to Indy over the weekend. Some of us had more success than others, which you guys probably already know about. And if not, we're going to talk about it. So that's going to be like the bulk of the show is going to be, discussion of new standard and stuff like that. So we do have just one thing in the community section to talk about, and then we'll kind of move on into sort of the half end of our show and everything like that. So let's go ahead and move into our community topic. So we have Kaladesh being available right now on Magic Online. Now, typically, this is different. Typically, we wouldn't see the new set until like Friday, but this allows people that are going to go to something like GP Atlanta, over the weekend, a chance to actually practice limited events, which is great. And
also offers a little bit more prep time for the Pro Tour.
Exactly. So people can actually get started with doing that. So, but it's pretty awesome. It's fairly sweet to see even when you think back about how long of a delay there used to be for sets to get actually onto Magic Online and actually start seeing pre-release events, and now they're just so much quicker to get that stuff on there, which is fantastic. So, good on you Wizards for doing that.
This is like props and slobs.
Yeah. The other thing that really we, in all honesty, don't know that much about. We aren't Magic Online grinders or anything like that. We don't use the product to generate a profit or anything, but they are changing prize payouts basically, and they're introducing what are they called, treasure chests?
Treasure chests
as actual. I wish I wish they just partnered with Nintendo. Just every time you open one, that's what the noise that made.
You could probably program that in, right?
No, I mean not. Maybe
on the old version.
If you know how to program a Python, then yeah, you could probably do
it. But yeah, version 3 maybe you could do some sick hacks, put some stuff in there, but not
lead hacks,
some lead hacks, but not in the new version, unfortunately. So that's pretty locked down. Most of the stuff is server side and not necessarily even on your computer, which is interesting. So now there's been a lot of hubbub around this, a lot of things shifting the Magic Online financial landscape basically due to this, which is kind of interesting. Some modern staples have shown a decrease in price, and sort of disrupts the stability of Magic Online as a whole. When you basically how they work is they are booster packs. Basically, they're
Yeah, so you get a certain amount of them for how you place in an event. Then they will have, most of the time, they will have like 2 random standard common or uncommons in them. So if you ever went to those places that had those cool quarter machines that had like the cards that came with a little cardboard like pamphlet over them, that's what you're getting. Then a little rarer than that, you'll find a standard rare or mythic rare. And then one in every like 239 or something like this treasure chest, you'll get a specialty mythic, which could be like a Black Lotus, or as I think CVM described this, I saw on his Twitter feed, described this as the guys who sell grab bags, like the repacks on eBay.
Oh yeah, this is just eBay repack.
Yeah, 100%. Like, there's definitely a Black Lotus in one of these. But most of them are trash. Yeah. And I think that's the issue. So these are non-tradable.
Now they did come out and say that they are planning on making them tradable in a future update.
Okay, well, I don't know if that even matters, but I guess selling them is a thing. I don't know if making them tradable actually makes this better, and there's a secondary reason for that. But these replace like pack prizes in a number of events, and yes, a couple of those events did go down in price. That's one thing that they like a couple of events are 2 tickets less to enter, but now they pay out in grab bags, in lottery tickets. Like, this is why people were, we mentioned the prices going down. Like, the trust in the economy has dipped because of this. Because you now no longer guarantee a prize that you can sell in any fashion and quantify in a real fashion. You get play points and these treasure chests, and it's not a good look.
Yeah, I mean, and making them tradable is helpful, but overall, like, this just affects the EV that you are going to be getting from these events, which is really the problem. So we'll kind of see how this shakes out, but it looks like it's going to be an overall net negative for the Magic Online community.
Yeah, I agree. And I wanted to mention, so there was a write-up from a guy who's fairly prominent. You may have heard of him. His name was Richard Garfield.
Is he the guy that does the cat drawings?
Yeah, he made all the cats, the ones that like lasagnas and hate Mondays. No, that's the guy who designed. This is Josh and that's just the guy who designed Magic and invented it. Wrote about how like in game design, like we shouldn't be profiting off of the people who succumb to buying things that are like this. The boxes that can either be they have like a really small chance of actually having what you need in them, and hidden within this critique are things like the way that packs work for like Hearthstone, or like loot crates work for even like Overwatch, right? Like something that you can give people, hey, you can slowly grind for all of these things, or you can buy all these cool little mini boxes. And like this seems like so he makes this huge like post saying that these are bad, and then like immediately afterwards it's like, how about treasure chests? You weren't talking about those, right? Were you? And it's like, well, okay, at least you can't trade them. So you can trade them now, so you can just buy a bunch of lottery tickets now from a vendor. All right, cool. Well, we did it. We finally did it. We've broken through, and we can now feed the addiction. So. Yeah, this seems bad all around, but that was just like, obviously they didn't intend it to come out that way, but man, it's just like some real bad irony there. Just like, creator of Magic, don't do this to players. Wizards, look what we did to players. Nice.
Yeah, it's a real bad look, and this is one of the Magic Online had like sort of a good streak going where they were making some pretty good announcements. People were kind of like getting a little more comfortable.
Cube leagues were sweet,
and then it's like, oh no, we just dropped the ball. So see how this pans out, and we'll keep you updated if anything else comes out. But really, it's overall not going to affect us personally. It will affect other people though that are far more invested in Magic Online than we are. But it's kind of the end of that story, and pretty much the end of everything in the community segment. Now, before we move on, I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Comic Town. They're running their 4th and we believe final classic series. Now they do have some other expos. I think they have like an expo for the no ban list modern. They're going to be running, but that's going to be later on.
There's also a qualifier in Indiana on Sunday
as
well. So there are other stores that are running qualifiers as well. But yeah, last traditional classic event.
Series. And it's going to be this Saturday on October 8th. It's going to be the Fall Classic, obviously, and it will be a standard format tournament featuring $2,000 in prizes. And good to note, the prize pool will be moved up to $5K if they are 100 or more players. The entry is going to be $30, and registration starts at 9 a.m. and then player meeting at 10. So definitely go out there and play in this awesome classic. It's a great. These tournaments are always great. Value as far as that is concerned. So please go out and support Comic Town, support our lovely sponsor. We love them. Hopefully you love them, and we hope that you do make it out.
You can also qualify for the Classic Series Final.
That's very true.
Which is in December. You can join myself and Mike.
Ding.
Morgan, you gotta get in that. Man, you
gotta
get in that.
You can go for that no modern.
The bandless modern.
Bandless modern, yeah.
Lols. I think not. I'm not gonna. I'm not really a fan of like investing in a bunch of cards that I can't play anywhere else. So
yeah, well,
I'm gonna pass. But
the key is to borrow aggressively. I think that's sound financial advice as well. Maybe.
Probably not, actually, when you really think about it. Anyway, let's go ahead and shift over to competitive. So over the weekend, obviously, we had Star City Games Indianapolis, and we were all in attendance. And tournament was great, well run. Definitely felt pretty smooth as far as that is concerned. When we start taking a look at some of the notable names in the top 8, we do see that Chris Van Meter won. Good to see him show up again. We haven't really seen him kind of be prominent within like the Star City game circuit in a while. But he is on the card hoarder team and was playing their list. And there were a lot of actual people on that list to be in fact, and proved to be quite profitable. Now we do see someone else playing a similar list, that I wanted to give a shout out to in the 6th place here. One Mike Kenny, I believe, is showing up here in the top 8.
This guy, I did it.
So CVM's list, the Carter list in general, is more of a closer to a mid-range list when you really look at it. They are going a bit bigger in the white-red variety, so they're playing what Star City Games has dubbed red vehicles. So they have a more of a dwarf-focused build, playing Depalas and veteran motorists, and playing vehicles like Fleetwheel Cruiser and Sky Sovereign. And they're playing 3 Fleet Wheels and 2 Sky Sovereigns, as well as 4 Smuggler's Copters. Now, I just want to get this out. Every list in the top 8 has 4 Smuggler's Copters.
Yeah, that's very true.
Is that card good?
Even Green Black Delirium, that's who I lost to in the top 8, 4 Copters.
Every single list. So, just know that if we don't mention it, they're there. Don't worry about it. Any other list that we talk about in the future has them. And if you don't have them, they are a pretty penny at this point in time for being a rare that's going to be opened a whole heck of a lot. So
one of the I don't pre-order a lot of cards, but definitely one of the happiest pre-orders I've ever had is Smuggler's Copter.
Yes, for sure. But there are a lot of crossovers between the lists that Mike and I played, and the list that we do see the card hoarder guys landed on. One card that I want to give a shout out to that we had decided on being good as well as them is Selfless Spirit. Now there were some articles today where they were trying to say like, yeah, it is awkward to play this card, but something that I had discovered with the card and something that CBM talked about was Selfless Spirit allows you to be both aggressive and defensive effectively with this sort of deck. So I'm glad that we were kind of the same mind, and I think that definitely helped a lot with our viability of our deck. Now, you might be noticing that I'm definitely not talking about Dave when we're talking about lists. Dave decided to pull an audible and play a little bit of a different list. Now, Dave, do you want to talk about your list?
Yeah, I still played White Red. I just played I decided to play the Artificer version. So with the Inventor's Goggles and the Stonehaven Outfitters and all that kind of junk. Actually, it was okay, but I lost to some random things that didn't really expect, so it didn't really work out for me. Went 5-4. So
Right now, but you did say that. Did you play against anything like the card hoarder list or something resembling closer to like the lower to the ground aggro list that Mike and I played?
I played against 4 white-red decks on the day, and I think I went 3-1 against them. So, I mean, it felt like advantage in the mirror just because if you had the goggles in your opening hand, your early creatures are typically bigger than theirs. Now, I've kind of felt like ultimately it comes down to smuggler copter advantage. So, like, my one loss was when my opponent was sided in, was it Fragmentize? Is that the one mana disenchant card? Where he was able to kill like 2 of my copters, and then his copter just kind of took over the game. So, I haven't played enough of the matchup to know if that's definitely what you want to be doing or going for. But it kind of felt like it just from my limited experience. But I don't know. I mean, the deck was fun. If you didn't draw your Inventor's Goggles, it was pretty bad. So it was kind of a high variance call. But I kind of knew that going in, and it is what it is. It's fine.
Fair enough.
So can I talk about it a little bit now?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not gonna lie. I know that Card Hoarder did a great job and talked to to Kent over the weekend and playing against 2 of the Card Hoarder guys in the tournament. It was interesting to see how the different lists came about. But I was really happy with where we landed and what we managed to. And I say Dave ended up playing a little bit different list, but he certainly had was input on all levels from it. So we harassed him a little bit for audibling, and
I'm just doing what I do.
He did say to me very personally, very quietly, that he wished he'd played our list. And that meant the world to me. It really did.
Yeah, now we get to say it very loudly to a lot of people.
I wanted to make it sound intimate, but it wasn't. I'm just being a jerk now. But Morgan and I stay true here, and honestly really worked to hammer this out. Worked with the sideboard, and we're really happy with where I think we landed. If you look now, comparing our sideboard list to the card hoarder list, I think they definitely had a better sideboard plan for the mirror. Having played against 2 of them, they were boarding in 10 plus cards against me. But I went 1-1 against them. I messed. I didn't know how to board the first time I played against Lucas Kiefer. It was the older Kiefer brother, who was very nice to play against. We had a fake feature match. And he got there in game 3 by drawing just a little bit more removal than I did. We had some fun times where his DePaula found all 3 other copies of his DePaulas. So the game was so tight that he was attacking with the DePaula, then playing them post our second main to have a blocker. But once I figured out the boarding strategy, I played against Jacob Bao as my winning in on day 2 and beat him 2-0. And really was happy with how the sideboard worked out. They were getting slower and going into Gideons, and they were the bigger list in general. So I think I just talking with Morgan too, identified that we just wanted to be really aggressive, and we went as small as possible and had all of our fleet wheel cruisers and none of the Gideons and all of the bushwhackers, and it turned out to just be exactly what you needed. And in game 2 against Jacob Bao, he played multiple Gideons and couldn't do anything because he was on his back. He was on the back foot the entire game. So it was interesting to see. I think that you'll see over this next week that obviously CVM won and the card hoarder list did really well. So we're not going to get a lot of love, and it's not like we did anything groundbreaking to the archetype compared to anyone else. But I will say I do like ours in position to theirs. If you want to go a little smaller, if you read, I think Chris Van Meter's write-up today was pretty interesting, and him talking about how much they did, how Toolcraft Exemplar for them underperformed, and he said mainly because it's so bad at blocking, and we played it in a list where we don't ever want to block with it.
If I blocked with it, I knew I was losing. I knew I was dead.
An Exemplar led to the I think the main difference between our list, if you're looking at them and theirs, they went bigger with the Paula and Console Flagship, and we went we instead focused on Reckless Bushwhacker, which was, that's the card that carried me to the top 8. It really did. That card leads to the most busted draws.
Yep.
That card allows you to come back from crazy board states. And I do think and that's a card that was allowing me to beat the card hoarder list as well, because they can try and assert board control and they have a ton of vehicles, but then out of nowhere you can just be like, well, I don't care what your vehicles are doing.
Yeah,
we're doing this.
Yeah, and that's something that I had in my deck as well. I had the 4 Bushwhackers main and the 4 Servo exhibitions to kind of go along with that. So I just tried to be like super aggressive with my list, and it was okay. The exhibitions were kind of meh on their own, but they did like let me routinely get to like 3 artifacts so that my exemplars had first strike,
which was super relevant. There were still a lot of Sylvan Advocates and stuff on the day,
right?
Servo Exhibition was like, there were certain times that I was really happy to draw it, especially like it was a really sweet card to keep in your hand when you know your opponent had a way to like clean the board up a little bit, because like most of the time they have to make the decision between killing your copter and your creatures, and a lot of the sweeper effects can only do sorcery speed, so they're not killing your copters. So you can like just hold back the Servo Exhibition, wait for them to clear your board, and then you have 2 pilots on your turn, and that was impressive. But just as often, I was boarding one out fairly consistently, and I was discarding a lot to it. So it's like the nice thing about these copters and just like playing with it throughout the day. I put a lot of time testing in. Morgan got a lot of time testing in. Dave doesn't have the ability to do as much testing, and really was just focusing on the sort of the Sean McLaren method.
I was testing in my head.
Yeah, the brain testing. But I think even Smuggler's Copter can be opened up more than what it is, because this idea of being able to find your sideboard cards consistently, being more liberal with what you're like discarding. So like by the end of the tournament, like Servo Exhibition felt perfect as a 2 of, because whenever you didn't want it, you just literally got rid of it.
Yeah. So I have to say, like that was kind of like a good 2 of in our list. Like that was the little card that could sometimes, where you're just like, this is like insane when I need to like push through a bunch of damage and stuff like that. And it led to a lot of like people taking more damage than they thought out of nowhere. I know that both Mike and I got to do the double Bushwhacker turn, which was sweet. Definitely an awesome thing that I really enjoyed doing. My opponents not so much, but whew. Overall, I think that after looking at the week 1 and looking at what came out, we definitely have some like different options that we might want to explore in the sideboard. But I think that we can adjust the list and make it still be good. And it's nice because it is not the card hoarder list. We'll have to like have a discussion to see if it like falls to the same things that people will be trying to do to disrupt that list, and see if that'll also affect us, or if we can like deflect some of the hate that people are going to obviously be bringing. But I think we've actually really like talked about the list since the open, really. So
no, we haven't. Go ahead.
Yeah. What do you guys think of the veteran motorists that a lot of the vehicles lists were playing?
So I have 2 different thoughts on the card. One, and this is just me like doing only an average amount of testing with the card. Like I didn't like it very early, which I know is surprising. Like as a person who like played Flamejet until like the last possible chance I could cast the card, just because I like or is it Magmajet? Sorry, Magmajet. Flamejet's the one that cycles, right? Anyways,
sure.
Magmajet though, because of the scry too. Like the scry was fine on it, but the body is just not very good compared to some of the other creatures. Both Toolcraft Exemplar and Inventor's Apprentice having 2 toughness when they attack was important a lot of the times, and that card if it's piloting something was very good. Now something I didn't pay attention to and definitely happened in a match was just like I did not realize that it accrued the copter, and the copter then became a 4/4. Yeah. I thought it was a trigger after the way it's worded. I thought it was a trigger afterwards. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit awkward. Them having bigger copters than you is a big deal, but the card itself is really like unimpressive. And like most of the time, we were like just crewing our copter with extra 1 power creatures. Like when you're crewing your copter with your 2-drop that's a 3 power creature, then like you're getting 1 more power on your Thopter. But there's a lot of times where like they spent like their turn 2 to play that, and their turn 3 to play the veteran motorist, and like they that's how our deck was able to find tempo outs to beat them, because like that it just doesn't do what you want to do. So I'm very medium on the card. It's certainly better when it's a 4/2 because of DePaula. So definitely playing them in conjunction makes a lot of sense. But the card felt pretty medium to me. Now, granted, I wasn't casting it. They'll probably tell you different. So
yeah, a lot of people are saying that it was just really important to make your copters bigger than theirs.
If you are, so it depends on the match goes. If you're just both attacking the whole time, then it's actually not as relevant. because they're not going to meet each other. They're both tapping. If you're trying to play defense, that makes sense. But as CVM said, their deck is going bigger, but still doesn't play defense very well, which is one of the it didn't have a lot of issues.
That's kind of a weird space to be in.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to even think about. Like, oh well, it doesn't play good defense here, and it's like, well, yeah, and so I don't know. I was happy with where we ended up. I really don't know whose list is better. I said like we literally went 1-1 against card hoarders list, and then I got paired against Lackney, the white red humans version, but we drew into the top 8, so I didn't really get to play against him. I do feel like that's not a great matchup though, because you have to have answers for every one of their creatures, especially Garrison, because Garrison. If you don't have the most aggressive start, Garrison, there's just no way for you to clean up that card outside of like the Savage Alliance and the sideboard. So.
Yeah, that card just seems really good. Like even if you're not playing humans, it just seems like a good card now to be playing. So I guess the fact that it's a 2/3 and runs into copters is probably not
that
best,
does make it awkward, but it becomes a 3/4 really quickly when you have Thalia's Lieutenant.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's another interesting sort of diversion that the white red list kind of happened. So they are playing a more humans-focused list, obviously take advantage of things like, Thalia's Lieutenant. And they're also playing main deck Thalia. Now, we played Thalia in our sideboard to great effect.
Yeah, she was great out of the board. Oh, my gosh.
So...
I still, there was never a situation where I wanted her more than Pia game 1.
No, not at all.
And Pia and Alar, can I just say, like, good on us. Pia and Alar, it's $2 now. And I'm going to credit us with a little bit of that.
Doubled the price.
Yeah.
Hey, absolutely. Card hoarders getting the credit for doubling the price of DePaul. It's $2. We're taking the credit for PNLR. But it definitely was got out of the board. I will say, and people have already made mention of this a number of times, but Chandra was pretty average out of the board. There were a couple games where I boarded her in where she was just the nuts, mainly against green-white is when she did the most work for me.
Yeah.
But against it, again, any deck that had like manlands, and honestly, like the green-black Delirium deck is a good example. I played in the top 8. Those were the kind of matches where you want to board in Planeswalkers because they have good value against their creatures, their Grim Flayers, and that sort of. But between this guy having Copters and hissing Quagmires, it wasn't even as good as it should have been. So I don't think I'll be playing Chandras in the 75 again anytime soon, and that hurts me.
Yeah.
It's awful. Pia is now sort of my main bay, and I don't like telling that to Chandra. Like, how do you tell that person that like, hey, I know you didn't think you're like, I'm kind of hanging with your mom now. I don't know what to tell you. It's cool.
So you try to say that Chandra's mom has it going on?
She's all I want. She's all I want, and I've waited for so long.
Yeah, thank you, Fountains of Wayne. Thank you.
I do want to quickly. I won't spend a huge 15-round tournament. I do want. I won't go through tons of matches or anything. I will say my only 2 losses came to a Spirits deck, and to. Oh shoot! I'm going to even forget what my second loss is to now, and that's unfortunate. Oh no, I just said it. The card hoarder list too. Kiefer playing that. I definitely think I won a couple matches I shouldn't have won. I definitely won a match against Ross Merriam where in game 3 he actually drew 8 lands in a row. There's not even an exaggeration. Like he just actually did. And I was like, man, I don't deserve this match, but I'm taking it. But but overall, like deck felt very strong in the mirror, especially the red-black mirror. Did you? How many times did you play those mirrors, Morgan?
Twice, I want to say. Okay. And I beat it both times.
All right, yeah. The only mirror that I lost was to Kiefer. Any other deck that was playing, the same sort of subset of red aggressive creatures, I always felt like Bushwhacker just let us sort of like you could both play this game where you're both chipping in, but you're setting up the turn where you're going off, and they don't have that. So that felt pretty nice. I watched. I know Morgan. I watched you play against. Was it a couple like you played against like the Key to the City versions? I saw those a couple times, and that was interesting.
I didn't like that red black deck. They played the Blomac Courier, and I was like, cool, I'm going to play this 1/2. They were like, well, okay. I do have to say that maybe I did. No, I beat it the second time around. But that deck can definitely, like, you get to a point with that deck where some of them were playing Lupine Prototype, where it can be like a difficult card to beat awkwardly. Yeah, especially with like Key to the City and stuff like that.
I watched that game where like the person always had one card in their hand and they could just like pitch it to Key to the City whenever they wanted just to make their 5/5 able to block, and that was interesting.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that overall, like, our deck is faster than theirs, basically, and can just like be more effective. because typically we can just attack through their creatures, and like their deck runs a lot more on synergy than I think ours does. They do have more reach, but I felt like we were just faster.
Yeah, that was like the theme over, and I think learning to do some sideboarding on the fly and just deciding the matches where you just wanted to go as fast as possible with the second cruiser. And I went 7-2 on day 1, and then 5-0-1 on day 2. And some of that, like I said, I played Ross on day 2. Some of that's luck, but the other part of that is I definitely felt much more confident boarding day 2, and I think I showed in the number of mirrors I played. I also played against like I played against Zach Voss and beat him in 2 games, and he lost in the finals. To Chris Van Meter, though, his very interesting take on Grixis and Selfless Spirits were great against him.
Yep.
So I played a couple. I got interesting lists and was really happy with how it worked. Now, Morgan, you went to day 2 with the same record that I did. You got bit by the mulligan bug a little bit, but
yeah, I mulliganed a lot day 2, which is unfortunate. I not to say that I didn't also just play against some great players as well, which was. Players that were definitely of a higher caliber than me, like the current reigning world champion Brian Broadduin.
You ruined our perfect record against him.
I know. I felt so bad. I really wanted to. To my credit, I did beat him on like a really tough mulligan, which was pretty sweet. I'm gonna have to. I think I mulliganed to 5 and beat him, which is awesome.
Yeah, there you go.
And but just could not clinch the match. I was sideboarded wrong against his deck just because I just was not comprehending what was going on. But yeah, I just got like a bit unlucky on day 2, so 72 into like 9 and 6 and not cashing, which was it was rough. But I mean, like what are you gonna do? I played against the Melwark Colossus deck twice, and both times the deck just like the turn before I could kill them, they just go off.
And not like random pilots either. Like he lost on day 1 to like Jaden Clombarons playing the deck, and then his last round against Emma Handy. So it was just like not just like random people playing a cool deck, but like
proficient people.
They knew their deck.
Very intelligent Magic players. So just like, all in all, like over the weekend, regardless of like record, I still had a good time. It was my first day 2. I had not day 2.
Congrats on that, seriously.
I not day 2. I day 2'd an invitational before I actually day 2'd an open, which is hilarious. It was good though. I know that Dave kind of brought this up beforehand, but and we already mentioned it, but there are a lot of Smugglers Copters in the top 8, and even like throughout the rest of the list and everything like that. And I don't think that we need to really extend this into like a question of the week, but is this something we should be worried about?
So I've thought a lot about this because people have been asking that question, and I think the interesting about Smugglers Copters. So you had as many copies as possible in the top 8 as possible. But you also had like a lot of diverse, there were a bunch of red-white decks. Don't get me wrong, but you had like Grixis again, Emerge playing it. You had Green-Black Delirium playing it. Like I don't know if it's an issue. So is it an issue if every deck is playing it because then it's equal? It probably is an issue if every single deck is playing it. But that's just the nature of making it colorless. So I don't know if that's necessarily a problem yet. It could be the kind of thing though that we see this for a few months being in every single deck, and then like the more robust answer is in Aether Revolt, because this is sort of common with cards like this that are overtly powerful, where there's a strong answer in the next set. So that way it's still good, but there is a way to punish people for playing it because it doesn't exist currently.
All it takes is a card like Smash to Smithereens, which ironically enough just rotated out because it was in Magic Origins, but like. If a card like that is legal, then I think it just completely keeps it in check. It's really going to be like, okay, you really want to play this copter? I mean, you probably will anyway, but right. I mean, at least there's a pretty good answer to it.
Yeah, at least there'll be a price that you pay.
Yeah.
And that's the idea. So it could be a problem. We'll see. This being week 1. Everyone sort of said the same thing. Like we identified aggro was good, and aggro was good, and that's really refreshing. To be quite honest,
I'm a
fan. But we won't know what the full robust metagame is until a few weeks at the Pro Tour. There were a number of people who literally are leaving. Left Indianapolis to go to Hawaii, who are not going to be playing the same deck that they were playing on this weekend when they get there. So
yeah, not at all. That's something we see frequently, and like there was even an article on MTG Goldfish that was discussing the legitimacy of like week 1 results. and how different those typically are from like what happens at the Pro Tour. And typically, the Pro Tour dictates what happens for the rest of the season.
And I will say it's interesting that article was really good. You should definitely read it. That normally though the Open picks at least one deck that's going to stick through. Just I have a strong guess as to what deck still remains a legitimate deck going forward. I don't know what version of it is, but it probably has mountains and plains in it. So
I would agree with that statement. I think that white red is definitely a perfectly viable sub strategy. How it looks from now till then will be undetermined, but playing with the deck over the weekend, the results that we saw, the deck has enough power to stick around basically.
And I do, before we move on to some of those other lists, I do want to thank a number of people who reach out to me again and sent me some messages and stuff. Like, it felt good to make it back into the into the top 8 for a little bit. And I also want to give a big shout out to Mark Poolside Mountains. They've been with me since the beginning, and I told Dave that I wanted to make them great again. So I took the same mountains from Big Boros from a couple years ago, brought them back to Sunday, and that felt good. We had a moment, Mark Pool Mountains and I did, where we were just like, we saw each other from across the room, we pointed at each other, we nodded, we knew what was up.
That's weird. I had the same kind of experience this weekend.
Yeah, you did
on Sunday,
and we'll talk about that because we're harassing Dave a little bit, but he redeemed himself.
And then I messed up again, but it's okay. We'll get into that later.
So let's. What other standard lists do we want to talk about here? Because there are some interesting ones, I think.
I think we should talk about this Grixis Emerge deck that was the runner-up. Zach Voss was playing it. So this is obviously Grixis colors and just revolved around casting Elder Deep Fiends and Wretched Griffs and flashing back Kozilek's Returns. I mean. Have multiple ways to discard cards into the graveyard to get back things like Prized Amalgam. You have things like Scrap Heap Scrounger, which work pretty well with Prized Amalgams. He's playing Perpetual Timepiece, which is a card I did not expect to see in main decks.
Yeah, mills you.
It's the card that's the 2-mana artifact that mills you for 2, and then you can exile it to shuffle any number of cards from your graveyard in. He's playing a Cathartic Reunion, which is a card that I actually saw a lot of people playing.
Yes, I saw that. It was like a cross archetype all-star. Like Blue Red Spells was playing it, and the Hulk. I don't know if I saw any Hulk Reanimator decks, or at least didn't play against any, but I think they were there. Obviously, they were playing it.
Yeah, I played against
the Emerge decks were all playing it.
Yeah, I played against a red-black deck that was playing some madness cards with that. So
I played against this guy on day 2, Zach. And yeah, definitely he played a turn 2 timepiece against me, and I was like, huh. And then he flipped over the Cathartic Reunion and something else. So okay, this is what we're doing. And I definitely thought I had game 1 just in the bag against him because he never flipped a Kozilek's Return. But then he was able to set up the Get Back Ahana Dead or cast Kozilek's Return, Get Back Ahana Dead, and then Elder Deep Fiend to set up a pretty massive turn. But Selfless Spirit was able to set it up so I could just I could still take the game. But it was the deck went from looking like it was doing nothing to all of a sudden just whoa, where did this board state come from?
Just doing everything.
And he mulliganed I think in our game 2, and he had a really aggressive start, and I was able to sort of overcome it. But it was really interesting because game 1 he was really dirtily, and all of a sudden went off with his Kozilek's Return. But the next game he was Scrappy Scrounger into Prized Amalgam into Haunted Dead. And he was just attacking. And I was like, okay, wait, what were you? This is not what you were doing game 1. So it seemed pretty spicy. And I got to watch him play a couple more games, and obviously watch him, in the finals there. The deck was interesting. The Crypt Breakers or something I never saw, but seemed really interesting.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at that and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I get it. Kind of goes with the rest of the deck, lets you discard, but it seems out of place.
Yeah, I don't think this list is perfect by any stretch.
Yeah, but there's definitely something here.
Oh yeah,
and I think it has a lot of cool synergies and everything. And the fact that in my opinion, it seems a little untuned. And the fact that he got all the way to the finals, I think, tells you all you need to know about the power level of the deck. So, I don't know if this specific version will be a thing going forward, but I think we'll definitely be seeing, the kind of the shell of Scrap Heap, Scrounger, Prized Amalgam, and Haunted Dead in something going forward.
They're good friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see where this list goes. I think the Liliana Last Hope in the sideboard is a little bit suspect, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, all the week one decks. I mean, my deck was a pile, but this deck is much better than mine. But I mean, I know nobody's gonna have the perfect deck week one. So
yeah, it is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, when you kind of take a look at it, it's not too expensive if you take out the Lilianas. I mean, really, I don't know how much Kozilek's returns are, but they're probably sub 20 still.
They're like $13.
Yeah, like
13. Sold out at 13, but so that's not terrible.
You still get copters though.
If
you don't have those already, then
yeah, I guess all the decks are expensive now. Sorry, guys. Before I say anything, jeez.
But I don't know. I think week one, I don't think you want to be looking for the perfect list. I think you just want to be looking for what cool interactions, what seem to work well, and then kind of build off that.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely something here, and I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see even different versions. Maybe even different colors. Maybe there's a version with green or something like that. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, it was a good run for Zach, and I went back and watched his top 8 match. He played against Devin Kepke and just crushed him. It was just not close.
I watched the second half of that match, and Devin was not in a good place.
Yeah, so I mean, it seemed like with all the white red that was in the top 8, it seems like he was just going to roll right through, and it just didn't happen against CVM in the finals. But
now, I don't know. So you watching that game one, there's definitely how DePaula can be interesting, or even the motors can be interesting. So specifically, it was in game one. He was at 5. Zach was, and he got attacked. Large attack from Chris, and definitely he blocked in such a fashion so that the Smuggler's Copter would still get through, and then before damage was lethal. Tapped his zombies to draw a card and lose a life. And then, you see Chris, so he's a 5, he goes to 4, and you see Chris go, this is a 4/4. And he's, laughing. He's oh, right. I don't think it was the way he was getting out of it anyways, but, right there, it was just no, this is actually a 4/4. And it was oh, I'm dead then.
Oops. That was unfortunate.
Yeah, so, but yeah. What other decks we want to look at here?
We should probably talk about red-black aggro, even if for a second.
Jacob Hagen.
Yeah, Jacob Hagen's list. This is very similar to literally what Jerry Thompson has been supporting and putting out there. And I don't have a list side by side to compare the differences. I don't think Jerry's list even had a sideboard, so that'll obviously be different. But yeah, this is kind of what all of those lists look like, and they were all playing Key of the City, and that card is probably fine in this list, and it certainly felt like that is in a lot of ways how they can win. I have to say that Key of the City is probably more impressive with Lupine Prototype because making that thing unblockable, pretty good.
Yeah, there was a ton of red black from what I saw, and if in the day 2 metagame it was the most played deck, but I guess that's if we're not lumping all the red white aggressive decks together. But yeah, it was pretty well represented. I played against it twice. So.
Yeah, I also played against it twice, and it definitely has more reach. It definitely can. At least the versions that do have the prototype can potentially be better at blocking. Funnily enough, but Courier was not impressive to me at all. At least when I played against it, I just did not care whatsoever. Most of the time, the things that were impressive were, at least in the deck, the Copters and the Keys to the City with flow. Just because they seemingly always had a pretty decent way of turning it on, and making that deck have Lightning Bolt is definitely
you mean temper.
Yeah,
Fiery Temper.
Yeah. Not Impulse. Yeah, it's Fiery Temper. Excuse me.
You said flow, but it's okay.
Flow. Yeah, whatever.
No, but you're definitely right.
Sick.
Yeah, you're definitely right. just them having that much more reach in the deck with the tempers and the flows and the disintegrations. They don't have nearly as many creatures as like our deck was playing or the vehicles deck was really trying to do, but they make up for it with their reach.
Yes.
Which if you're interested in that, this is the way to do it.
Right, they're playing like cruisers still, so you still have like a lightning axe sort of effect in the deck. So they definitely have more reach, and having to like that's how they're trying to sort of beat the Copter Mirror in non 4/4 Copter decks, basically, because you can it's the speed of temper and destroy it. So that's what I was always worried about, because we didn't have a way to make the Copter bigger. So it was always sort of a risk to crew it up and send it in when I was playing against this deck, especially if they, hadn't, activated their key to the city, basically.
Gotcha.
I will say this. I don't think Bomat Courier is a very impressive card, like we've been saying. However, I did play against a red-black deck that had built a smash in it. So when I was just like, oh yeah, sure, I'll just throw my thing. I'll just throw a blocker in front of it, and then just got run over with trample. That was a little awkward. It did create a little bit of tension, though. Like, you really don't want to let it attack too many times, because it can, refill their hand eventually. If they get like 3 or 4 cards under it.
I think the issue in this format, though, is that like none of the decks, like even in none of the decks in the top 8, specifically. But okay, I think of it. Maybe Voss's deck is the only one that really doesn't have a good way to break serve on turn 1 or 2. Yeah. Like, all the aggressive decks have 1 and 2 drops. The Delirium deck was playing Dryads and Grim Flayers and Sylvan Advocates, as were all the green-white decks. I think the issue is there's just not enough decks for that deck. Or that card has to have at least a few decks where it's able to attack a number of times to make it worth it. Because against any of the aggressive decks, that's just not happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true for how this tournament turned out.
I think I had one activated against me one time, and that was for 2 cards. Every other time, that card died with cards sitting face down underneath, like next to their opponent's deck. Like, that's how that card worked every time.
Yeah, I have to say, like, that was a lot of my experience with it. So, but you said that you had played against a red black opponent that was not playing the Couriers, was playing Gougers.
So I think actually I'd have to look. He might have been playing both, but he had a Falconwrath Gorgers. Yes,
Gorger.
And the Gorger was sweet only because it was like you still wanted your 2-1 for 1, your Jackal Pup essentially, but if you used it to crew up a Copter, you could discard additional copies of Gorger to the Copter and play them for their madness cost. And that was like the perfect amount of value, just like that little bit of extra value to get out of those cards. And let me see if I can find if he top 64. I will look real quick if you want to continue.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give this was one of the again another popular deck, another popular choice that showed up. We can talk about the deck that beat you, Mike, unfortunately, piloted by Abe Snake.
Shinake? That's how they pronounce it, I believe.
Shinake. So this is sort of a version of the green black list that we knew was going to be there. We had sideboard cards against them that we obviously wanted to come in preparation for. But this list is going playing some Gearhulk. So we have 1 Noxious Gearhulk and 2 Virtuous Gearhulks. But then they're like playing Narwhal Dryads, Grim Flayers, Sylvan Advocates, Tireless Striker, Ishkana. So this is definitely more of a low to the ground aggressive list as far as their creature go, in my opinion. No Emrakul or anything like that trying to happen. And then with only 18 spells, we have 3 Planeswalkers and Liliana the Last Hope, and then we have 4 Copters, 3 Grapples, 2 Grasp of Darkness, and 4 Traverse. This is sort of reminiscent. What you got confused face going on there, Dave?
What list are we looking at?
Third place. Abe.
Yeah, he had 4 Grass, 4 Traverse.
Yeah, is that what I said?
I said 2 and 1 or something.
No, 4 Grass.
Okay.
4 Traverse.
Whatever. Okay. Continue.
I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just reading things off the list. I don't know if the words match what I think they're saying.
I think the numbers are moving around.
I'm on that Dayquil brain. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, this list was interesting. They on coverage they said that they thought that I was favored to win it. I'm not totally sure. We talked about this list being an issue. He wasn't playing like any removal. Unfortunately, like both games against me, we even got to see like the 75 beforehand. Both games against me, he drew all of the removal he could ever want. So
I mean, like post sideboard, like he is. Like,
if you have 4 dead weights and 2 ruinous passes, which is what he brought in.
Yeah, and then you have still the four grasp of darkness.
Right. But
So,
like
10 removal spells.
I don't
Right.
even I don't even like Ruinous Paths against the white
No,
red deck either.
yeah,
Just
it
sorcery
was-
speed, 3 mana. It's like, I don't know.
He drew both of them game 2 in the right spots. And obviously he had a couple of cards that were, game 1 it was just him like able to play most of his creatures out, and then his one, his removal spell that he, his couple of removal spells that he drew were just like the perfect, grasping the perfect tempo for Copter. So, it is what it is with that. This list definitely because I played against Green Black Delirium 3 times on the weekend. Did you play against it at all, Morgan?
I did. And I beat him. I
Okay.
only played against it one time, though.
Yeah, I played it. So I beat both other versions as well. The first version that I beat was definitely playing Vessels, and as we said before, if you're playing Vessels, you're not going to beat the aggressive decks. If you're spending any of your early turns playing a cracking Vessels, you're not going to break serve. The other version I played definitely had Grim Flayers and Dryads as well, and I was able to break through. This one, the Copters being a little interesting, and the Copters were interesting just because of how well they work with Sylvan Advocate against aggressive decks. Like, the Sylvan Advocate can attack still with its vigilance, but it can also then crew up the Copter to block your Copter, and that really makes for some like bad tempo turns for the aggressive deck. So
Yes.
it's an interesting, it's a very interesting take on Delirium for sure.
Yeah. To talk about that synergy, BBD's green-white list was also, running that sort of idea, and it was definitely brutal. So I could definitely agree to that. But we were playing a Magmatic Chasm in our sideboard to try and defeat the scourge that is Ishkana, which I got to do, and it was like, oh, the sideboard tech actually worked. These can't block. You're dead.
I died with it in my hand in game 2, not able to draw one more creature to do it. It was very depressing. I was like, all right, one more guy to get through, or a Bushwhacker just does it now, and I couldn't do it, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I this is kind of what I expected. Maybe the Gear Hulks were not like in my imaginary list that I was thinking of, but I had definitely had pegged that people were going to go more towards Gnarlwood Dryads over like other random garbage cards, basically, because Dryad is definitely a thorn in a lot of people's sides, and Pilot's a Copter, so like it's just all upside. But I definitely like this list. I think it's a bit lower to the ground. I think that Verdurous Gearhulk was definitely a very impressive card in a lot of people's lists over the weekend as well. It definitely was a card that could be backbreaking depending on what was going on the board, and like getting 4 power worth of haste, basically, depending on how you split up the counters, was very effective. Especially if you're making a giant Grim Flayer, a giant Trampler, or something like that. So I think it's fairly interesting. But I like this list.
Let's talk about this green-white aggro deck. So I know Tom Ross, I believe it was Tom Ross, Brad Nelson, BBD who played this.
Ross Miriam as well.
And Ross Merriam, okay.
Yeah, so all the
Not surprising.
the Roanoke gentlemen, as it were.
Right. So Tom Ross was the highest finisher. He finished 10th. And it's pretty tight list from what I could see here. So we have 4 of each of Verdurous Gearhulk, Fairgrounds Warden, Servant of the Conduit, Sylvan Advocate, Thraben Inspector, Gideon, Smuggler's Copter, and then we have 2 ofs of Tireless Tracker and Always Watching. And also 3 Blossoming Defense, which I really like that week 1 because people don't know. People really don't know about it, so you can really get some nice blowouts.
I definitely got with the game 1 against Ross. I managed to get the game still, but it was just like, I'll Harness Lightning your Copter, and it was like, nah, I'll blossom. And it was like, oh, wait, what? No.
And I like the sideboard as well. So we've seen this before with Brad Nelson decks, where he likes to take like an aggressive deck game 1 and then turn it into a control deck game 2. So he's definitely got you have things like can bring in Quarantine Fields and Stasis Snare for some additional removal. You have things like Linvala the Preserver, Nissa Vital Force, and Fumigate. So like in creature mirrors, you can kind of go bigger and even have sweepers, to kind of go over the top.
And that's what definitely boarded in against me, like casting. And I knew he had the fumigates, but it was just one of those things. Like, all right, well, here comes fumigate. Here it is. Let's get through this.
Yeah. So I don't know. Pretty sweet list. Were you surprised to see the Fairgrounds Wardens?
I had when it was cast against me, I was like, huh, all right, that's a card. Like, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, so basically it was like we need, like, I know that BBD said that they were just wanting something else to basically clear out a creature that was effective, so they just landed on Warden. It was just one of the, the 3-slot removal spells that they liked, and it was fairly, effective. It's another body for Gear Hulk. It, gets pumped by always watching, and it can pilot a copter. So it was fairly effective, and it definitely got me.
I like that you can curve, turn 2 copter into turn 3 Fairgrounds Warden. Your creature, crew the copter. Seems like a nice tempo play.
Especially if for any reason your opponent left their creature in copter back to block. So then you're just like, all right, well, you gonna crew it in response? What do you do? Because your crew in response, I'm taking your copter.
Yeah.
So, and you didn't crew in response? Great. Crew my copter, and now you can't block it. So, yeah, the line there screws.
Well, they could always respond to your target, right?
Oh, I guess I could do that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So you get the one of crew.
I'm still sick. Deal with it.
Anyway, but yeah, that's a pretty sweet list.
Yeah, it definitely seems, as far as a list that seems really put together, this one is pretty close to that as far as numbers go. I know that they are running a pretty high land count. I think BBD said that when I played against them after he beat me, he's like, yeah, the list is a little prone to kind of flooding out a little bit, so just be wary of that. But
yeah, copters
help
they heals all wounds.
Copter heals all wounds.
Yeah. What do you guys... Now, I'll just ask you about a kind of a singular card here that we saw on this list. Gideon, Ally of Zendikar. I kind of feel like Planeswalkers in general are under a lot of heat with all the copters and fleet wheel cruisers and things like that. So you guys played Gideon in the main deck. I had it in the sideboard. I didn't actually bring it in all that much. Did you find that Gideon was like a pretty good card, or was it pretty average?
I liked it.
Yeah, Gideon was great for me.
It was pretty good still.
Gideon is really nice because you can definitely cast a Gideon and always get your value out of it, right? So you can, if your Gideon's immediately going to be threatened, either you're going to cast it and make a 2/2, and that 2/2 is going to be valuable enough, or you make 2 2/2s if only the copter's getting through. So you have that line. So Gideon becomes like the what's the 4-mana card that makes 2 Night Ally tokens.
Oh yeah.
So either Gideon is that card, or you just cast it and he's your Anthem effect, and that's how you progress the game and you build the game around that. So I think Gideon is still fairly effective. There definitely is a lot more things that are pressuring him, so it is harder to just to sit back and allow him to accrue a bunch of tokens. But in all honesty, I found myself attacking a lot with Gideon. Our deck was one of the decks that you definitely can, do that far more effectively than other Gideon, based decks like the green-white deck. But there's a lot of times where, you were, casting a creature, activating your Gideon, and then bushwhacking, and then, just getting in for a bunch of damage. And even if the Gideon got blocked, it allowed your other creature to get in to, get the kill or something like that. Or it was one of the ways that you could still be aggressive against other creature-based decks, because you would set up early turns where you would get them to a low life total, but then things would sort of go to a stalemate. But then you would cast the Gideon, make a dude, and the next turn start just attacking with Gideon, and they have to start blocking or they die. So I know I got to that position at least once during the tournament.
No, Gideon was definitely good for me across the whole tournament, and I agree with that. And honestly, like if you play Gideon, and make a guy, and then they have to spend their turn like crewing a copter and attacking it with a copter to not even kill it, and then you get to either just attack with it. Then they still have to try and kill it again the next turn, and you're way ahead on board state. And that sequence happened a lot, where a person you could tell they just felt like they had to attack the Gideon, but they couldn't do much of anything else, and they lose the game there. But Gideon also allowed me it was great against the Green Black Delirium decks as a way to just stabilize the board for a long time. So. Sorry, I was laughing at something I shouldn't be laughing at. Stupid commercials. But yeah, so I like Gideon, though. Whether or not he's great in the format, it's going to, I think, be deck dependent. I know there were a couple control decks that were playing it in their 4-drop slot as a way to stabilize the board, and I don't know if that's the way to go with it right now, because, yeah, there are a lot of ways to pressure Gideon if you're not doing much else with the board, but I really like Gideon this weekend.
Yeah, I wasn't disappointed to have him, especially mid deck, so I expect that to continue going forward. Any other lists that we really wanted to talk about as far as what's going on?
Give you a couple quick hits here for just pulling out for myself. I want to mention Blue Red Eldrazi in 22nd place.
Yeah, that deck apparently you could still work with that deck.
Our future president is actually playing this list. Is Roark Camacho?
Oh man, President Camacho. If you haven't seen Idiocracy, please invest in that movie. It could be our potential future.
And congratulations, sir, on your wonderful name. But he played Blue Red Eldrazi, which if you take a look at this list, 3 Drowner Hope, 3 Ulamogs, 2 Chandra Flamecaller, 1 Jason Raveler of Secrets, some counters. This is my deck from the last format. I gave up on it. Maybe I was just too quick. Maybe it'll take me back.
Hey man, add 4 Revolutionary rebuff.
Yeah, I can't get behind that. I'm really glad he did well with it, but I can't get behind it.
Yeah, when Copter is the best card in the format, and your 2-drop doesn't match up with their 2-drop, no.
Well, it does have spatial contortion too, which is pretty sweet. That's pretty good.
So that is the upside at that point in time. Spatial contortion is definitely a card that got me playing against the Metalwork Colossus deck. They have access to that card, and whew. That is bad. So that is something to definitely take note of.
And 4 copies of Anticipate as well. So there's always something to do with their 2 mana when they leave it up to make it a little less suspicious that you're just like, I wonder why they didn't do anything on turn 2.
Right.
I don't want to get rebuffed. But it's also just as terrible when your opponent is every single opponent just casting Copter on turn 2, and you're like, yep, really glad. And then turn 3 they play their 3rd land to play a 1-drop to crew it, and you're like, yeah, that's what I get. This is what I get.
I deserve this.
So, but I want to mention that, and then I wanted to mention the deck I referred to before. This is Clayton Long, who is in 29th place. I played him on day 2, and he was up until the last 2 or so rounds. He had some pretty he had 2 matches where if he would have won, he could have top 8'd, but instead had some struggles and dropped down a little bit. Really nice guy though. But I didn't realize this versus actually just mono red.
Oh yeah.
So sorry, I played against a bunch of decks, but he was playing 3 Chandras in the main. And definitely there was multiple times in the game where that card was doing some work where he could use his removal because he had a ton of removal to clear the board, and then just play the Chandra. But he was playing 3 Bomat Couriers and then Scroungers, Falconwrath Gorgers, Inventor's Apprentices, and PNLRs. So just a lot of low to the ground drops with honestly a lot of removal. So he was playing even Collective Defiance as well. So yeah, pretty. I thought it was a pretty interesting version of the list, and also he was doing something, and he did this against me as well. He has Spire Bluff Canals in the main with 4 Aether Hubs, and he has Wandering Fumarolls out of the board and Fevered Visions. Now he didn't board the Fevered Visions against me, obviously, but he did board in the Fumarolls because you just want the extra man land, just like you want Needle Spires in those matchups. So that was kind of sweet, and then he could also bring the Fevered Visions in against the decks where those were powerful.
Yeah, that's an awesome sideboard play in all honesty.
So I really liked his version of the deck. We played a pretty awesome match. So I want to give him a shout out here in pretty sweet list. Any other decks we want to really talk about here?
Maybe Jeff Hoogland's, just because I think that is something that's sort of interesting. He finished in 31st place. He's playing Jeskai Flash. So we have...
What year is it?
Yeah. So we have 1 Torrential Gearhulk, 4 Rattle Change, 4 Chains, 4...
Full Rattle Change.
4 rattle change. It's when you have change in your pocket. You just 4 Selfless Spirits, 4 Spell Queller, and then 4 Archangel Avacyn. So, like, what? Selfless Spirit is the only creature that does not flash.
Correct.
Then we have 4 Stasis there, 4 Glimmer of Genius, 4 Harness Lightning, 4 Revolutionary Rebuff, and 1 Fumigate. So, obviously, I think like this list needs a little tweaking, but he was really having a hot tournament. I know that he spent a lot of time being undefeated.
He was close to the top. He had a real rough last 3 rounds, I think. But.
Yeah, and I just think that this deck is interesting, an interesting place to start for a control sort of deck. Obviously, Revolutionary Rebuff is a card that we don't like as a podcast, and maybe after this tournament, Jeff may not like as much. But 4 Stasis there is kind of an interesting statement to be making. I think it was a pretty interesting list. Jeff Hooglin is always known for playing things that are off the beaten path. So if you want to play something a little different, maybe look to this and make some tweaks and see what's going on. Little tweakies. But that's the only other list that I really wanted to talk about. I think overall, like a lot of the format was sort of pegged by the articles that were written. At least from what I saw, a lot of things that were there were there, except for green red energy. That was nowhere. It's like nowhere.
Actually, nowhere.
Did not play against it. Did not even really see it. It's just kind of like not a thing, which is unfortunate. I wanted it to be a thing so bad. But apparently,
we all did.
Apparently, not the aggressive deck, not the aggressive deck to be playing. So, anything else about Indy that you guys want to talk about?
No, I think we're good.
At least about standard.
No, about Indy in general. Yeah, let's move on.
No. So we can move on.
That was our show.
This was another wonderful episode about your instep. Thank you guys for tuning in. No, obviously there's a modern classic that Mike and I did not participate in, but one Dave Nolan did, and as we look in what's actually going on here, we see that Dave, you did pretty well in that there classic, if I'm not mistaken. It looks here that you got. No, I'm just gonna say you got top 4 on the actual.
No, we both got 6th place. We both finished in 6th.
on the actual deck list, Dave is listed in 6th place, which is it's inaccurate. Star City Games.
It's a lie. Don't believe it.
The correct place is 3rd or 4th, basically. Yeah. But please do tell the nice folks at home about your modern tournament.
Well, I decided it was time to bring back the Delvers. So I know Grixis Delver had won a GP fairly recently, I think within the last month or two. And I know Kevin Jones just recently won the last WMCQ, which is modern format with Grixis Delver. So I felt like it was just a lot better positioned in the format. Especially with Infect, I felt like it was going to be a big deck, and it's pretty favored against that. So, and turns out, played against Infect a bunch of times in the tournament. I basically just took Kevin Jones's list and added some of the new fast lands, so Spirebluff Canal. So switched around the mana base slightly. Really didn't change a whole lot there. I just added like an extra Watery Grave and had 2 Spirebluff Canals in it. Moved a couple of cards, from the sideboard to the main deck and vice versa. So, but for the most part, it's Kevin Jones's list, so I can't really take too much credit for the actual list itself. But felt good to be playing the deck again. Went X and 1 in the Swiss. I ended up playing Infect 4 times in the Swiss rounds. I did lose a match to it, which was partially my own fault. Kind of punted. Basically, I end of turn Snapcastered, and I could have terminated an Inkmoth Nexus that was still animated, and instead I went for Magma Spray to try to leave the Terminate in the graveyard for a future Snapcaster. And he ended up having a pump spell to save his thing, and then I died. So it was just not great on my part. But that was only game 2, so I mean, it would have gone to a game 3 had I won that game, and who knows. But in any case, got to top 8. Was pretty happy about it to kind of salvage the weekend a little bit for myself after my poor standard showing. Played against Wesley C in the top 8, who's playing Blue Red Storm, and I thought it'd be a pretty good matchup for me. Just Delver in general is pretty good against combo decks, just because you have you can actually pressure them and you have cheap counter spells and things like that. One thing that to note about his list, if you haven't seen it, he has 4 Madcap Experiment and 2 Platinum Empyreans in his sideboard, so he's got the little combo.
Yeah.
I don't think he brought it in against me. I don't think it'd be very good against me, but that's the kind of thing that can definitely catch people off guard. Typically against Storm, you're going to board out all your creature removal because they don't have any creatures except for Electromancer, but that's more of a spell anyway. But I don't know how many people he got with that in the tournament, but it's kind of sweet to just mention that there.
Probably more than one, I would say.
Yeah. So I was able to get that, and then I got paired up against Brad Carpenter in the top 4, and was playing Infect, so I played Infect for the 5th time. Played a super tight match, and I ended up making a pretty bad misplay in game 3 that cost me the match. Basically, kept a hand that was pretty good, but I only had 2 lands, and ended up, I bricked for a couple turns, maybe 3 turns on hitting that 3rd land. And then basically what it came down to, his board was something like he had an Inkmoth Nexus, 2 Blighted Agents, Noble Hierarch, and he had Wild Defiance in play. So my burn spells were pretty much turned off, but I did have an Izzet Staticaster, which does not trigger the Wild Defiance, because the Wild Defiance only works for spells. So I finally drew my 3rd land, and then just like I just didn't really even think of all of it through. I just played the Staticaster main phase and killed his 2 Blighted Agents. I think it was just the 2-for-1 was just like flashing in my face. It's like, oh, you got the 2-for-1 right there. He's tapped out. He has no cards in hand. And then, of course, he drew Become Immense on his next turn and killed me. So the correct play would have just been to sit back on the Staticaster and then just take 3 Infect if he attacked with all his Infectors, and then end a turn, play Staticaster, try to pick off something. And then I had Terminate in my hand as well, so the next turn I would have been able to untap, hold up Terminate, and have a Staticaster in play.
Right.
So it was just, it was really frustrating for me, just because that match and really the whole tournament, I've been playing very cautiously against Infect, and not giving them the opportunity to just kill me in one shot, and it was just like a brain fart. Just, I don't know, man. It was a long day. I don't know what to say. That's the only excuse I can come up with. But just, I don't know what made me play main phase Staticaster.
So here's the best part about that story.
Yeah.
Morgan is the one who caught that line afterwards. So
Yeah.
Morgan day 2'd, chose the right deck, played well, and then taught Dave what line he should have taken. He then took Dave's Magic Player ID card out of his wallet and said, "This is mine now." And that was how we exited the Indianapolis Convention Center. It was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
It's true. I felt pretty bad for having to point that out and be like, I don't want to demoralize you more, Dave, but
I know that this just happened.
No, that's fine. I mean,
I think it's right to be able to reflect and look at that, if that sort of mistake is made, and next time it won't happen.
yeah, don't worry, Dave. There'll be plenty of times where I'll make mistakes. So.
Oh,
I thought you were going to say that you have plenty more tournaments to play in, but no,
wow!
I don't.
Stop making this sad.
Oh no, I wasn't going to say that.
Yeah, yeah, that was kind of my last big tournament for a while, anyway. So, it was. Don't get me wrong. I was happy to top 4 the Classic. I was really happy with that, and I absolutely loved playing Delver because it's like my favorite deck. So, it was a really, really fun tournament, but it kind of sucked to go out on that note, knowing that I could have potentially, gotten to the finals. But, what are you going to do?
Yeah, it was a good run. We had a real good weekend.
Yeah. Did you guys talk about some of the Kaladesh cards that did show up at all?
No, not at all.
We did see the Blossoming Defense, showed up, and in fact, as many people would have suspected,
Studio.
Yes, would have suspected. We already talked about Platinum Imperion, Madcap Experiment showing up. I know those are the two big ones that were like people, calling their shots as far as that is concerned. But I didn't see, I didn't take a look to see anything else that would have been.
I already checked Affinity to see if there are any copters. Not that I saw.
No, it hasn't yet become a multi-format all-star.
Give it time.
Yeah, no. Trust me. Oh, I know. Time will be given, and we'll see if it makes it there or not. So, but overall, I don't think Kaladesh is, too drastically affected Modern, from what I can see, and everything looks about the same. The only thing that drastically affected Modern that is at all Kaladesh related was we did not see any bans or unbans. So that would be the thing. But I do want to say, Infect is definitely heavily, represented in the top 16. We don't have the rest of the breakdown, but it is 1 to 1/4, right? I think 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, it's 4 out of 16. So
there was a lot of Infect.
There was a lot of Infect, and I think you just that's just the deck that you will need to go out of your way to plan for at this point in time. So just be prepared for it. But yeah, I think that's it for Modern, from everything that I can see. And again, congrats to Mike and congrats to Dave on your performances. I top 8'd an on-demand draft.
It was sweet.
And I opened a Nissa
They went right
Vital
to the final
Force,
table.
and I paid for my draft. So there you go. But no. And I also won this sweet cold that Mike was handing out to people. I think he also got. I don't know if you saw on Twitter, but I think he also got Nick Miller sick. I'm just gonna blame that on you.
Value. That's not nice. I'm sorry, Nick. If I did get you sick, I apologize. Trust me. The nicest thing about this tournament is it's been a while since in a large event that I've played an actually true aggressive deck. I'm not even sure the last time that I played like a truly aggressive deck in I guess Death Shadow counts, but I'm like think of like an open. I haven't played Death Shadow in an open yet. So
Death Shadow is like a combo deck.
Yeah, but like I said, I haven't played an open yet. I haven't had this kind of time in a while. The last open we played like Modern, played Giftstron. You know what I mean? Like so like I had like 20, 25 minutes, even more sometimes after each round. So I was able to keep washing my hands, blowing my nose. Morgan and I got coffee a bunch of times. Like,
oh yeah, that coffee value was great.
Sometimes it's easy to forget when you're playing like mid-range slogs or control decks, and then you're just like, man, I beat my opponent and I have 30 minutes till the next round. Party.
It's great. Give a shout out to Airbnb. Airbnb, great service. Got us a sweet place to
Japanese
stay.
Murder House.
Yeah.
Japanese Murder House.
Can we tell this story?
Oh yeah, we can tell whatever
people
stories
need
you
to
want.
know.
So we checked into the place we were staying, which was about like 12 minutes driving from downtown, which is great. That's actually awesome value. But we check in, and it's fairly medium. This is only our second Airbnb experience. The place we're staying in is, very barren. Not a whole lot there.
Very, very bare bones, like
yeah, sure,
bare minimum.
And not saying that
whatever, it's fine.
I didn't really expect anything like fantastic or anything like that.
We were there for a total of 9 hours.
Yeah, basically,
we just went there, slept, and then left.
It was basically like, hey, let's not sleep in the car. Let's find a place to actually sleep. So, but this a place that have a second story that we went too. I did not initially go into this. It was mainly Dave and Mike that did. And then they came back with a report that there is a creepy door that was smaller than the other doors that led to like a pathway arch thing that looks straight out of a horror film. And it did.
Yeah, it was not a joke.
Upon viewing, it looks like that's where you would open up that door and there would be like a drowned girl spirit that would be there to kill you.
There were a lot of like random doors everywhere.
There were a lot
like
of
we were like,
doors.
oh, where does this go? Ooh, where does this go?
We didn't go into the basement. That looked terrifying.
Yeah,
we
I don't
also
think
didn't
we were
take
supposed
any
to go in the
pictures of the Japanese murder room because I didn't want to see what would be in the image. From what I've seen in films, that's how they take your soul.
That's true.
So no pictures.
That's true. We don't have any actual photographic evidence of this. Just know that it was terrifying, but overall a great value. So I can't complain.
Nobody died, so
It was cheap and no one died.
There are also two TVs in the main room, and like again, like the ring lady, the girl was gonna come.
Yeah.
She's gonna crawl out of the window if you. Or out of
we never turned the TVs
Yeah, we didn't turn them on.
No.
You don't turn them on because like that's how she gets you.
That's true.
Yeah.
Also, the room that I stayed in definitely had the door kicked in at least once.
It had 7 locks on it.
the door was reconstructed.
Yeah,
several times.
Definitely.
So yeah, good value. Like if we're gonna do like a star rating here, let's go 3.5 stars for good value, terrifying Japanese horror room.
Yeah, I would stay there again.
We also did. So at this particular house, there were 2 beds and a futon. And before like we even knew what this place looked like, we were just like, okay, well, after day 1, best record gets first pick on the bed. And then I obviously did the worst, so I got the futon with no blanket. By the way, no, there weren't any extra blankets or anything.
But
So we found like an old quilt that. I don't even know if it was clean. I don't know. It was.
I mean, it's
that was not good value.
That the body was wrapped in the Japanese horror house.
Maybe.
So, but I think like we'll be better equipped the next Airbnb that we go to. We definitely need to bring like pillows, blankets.
I did bring a pillow for the record, and that's the only reason Dave got pillows to sleep with.
Typically, like I just forgot because I brought the last one we stayed to. Actually, I went out and bought a pillow specifically because I'd forgotten to take one. So next time, I think we'll be better prepared for what the Airbnb may hold.
We'll also have crucifix and holy water.
Correct. We'll be traveling
Prepared on all fronts.
We'll be traveling with a young priest and an old priest, and we'll be a-okay.
Oh man!
But that was our trip, and it was fun. And I think that's like that might be like the last big trip that we take before the end of the year, right? Is there anything else?
Like we have the Open in November is in Columbus.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where else we might be going.
Yeah, I'm not going to that one. My son's supposed to be born like that day, so
I told him that you should just go, and if she goes in labor, then you can just meet her at the
Just call a judge and be like, hey, can I have a time?
Judge,
Mike, you don't know how this works,
You're right, I don't. That's why I get to harass you.
right? So when your wife's pregnant, then
Judge,
tell her that you want to go play Magic.
I need to time
Yeah,
switch.
tell her you want to go play Magic on the day that she's supposed to deliver.
Oh no, I wouldn't.
See how that
I'm telling
works.
you what you should do. I'm
No,
not going
no.
to do that.
That's horrible advice.
This is all. Yeah, it's not good advice. It's just entertainment for me. I just want value, sir.
Do you really expect us to come up with good advice, Dave?
At this point, no.
Okay.
There you go.
Good. I'm glad.
How long did it take you to get to this point?
I'm just glad that we've established this. I'm okay with this. But yeah, so that's pretty much everything. Don't really have a question of the week, or we haven't done going to turns in a while, but maybe that's something we'll do next week. But Mike and I are both sick, and I'm sure you've been very elated with how we both sound.
Yes, we are. We're in your ear holes. That's where
So,
you want us to be.
We figure shorter might be better this week. But we do have something coming up this weekend. We have the Comic Con Fall Classic, of course, that we talked about earlier. That's going to be on Saturday. And there's also a Modern IQ on Sunday that you can also attend if you want to play Modern. And then there are 2 GPs this weekend. So there's GP Atlanta and GP London. And they're both Kaladesh Limited. So good luck to all players attending these weekend events. And may you do well in your tournaments. Also, some upcoming sort of broadcast things that are going to be happening. mainly lack of shows that might be happening. I'm getting married, and then I will be on my honeymoon in October, at the end of October. So we have not panned out how shows are going to work. I'm getting married on typically the day that we would record. Guess what? Not recording on that day.
Marriage cast.
No, there's no going to be at your altar or anything like that.
That's the best.
Unfortunately, I do not want to have an annulment. Pretty much,
It'd be the shortest marriage.
Like literally.
So you're saying that your future wife might cast a null on your marriage?
Correct.
That only counts as weddings are enchantments.
She might ceremoniously reject me.
That's the best.
So I'd rather not have that happen. But we will hopefully regroup at some point in time to produce a show and kind of get that all out. But I do not know how that will look, as apparently weddings are very difficult to put together there from what I'm hearing. So thinking about podcasting is probably the last thing I will likely be thinking about when that is coming down the mountain, as it were.
When she comes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But that we will be recording next week, though, so don't worry about that. So we'll hopefully have more of a fleshed out plan. But I just want to give you guys a heads up because I care about you a lot. But come to our Facebook page, give us a quick like on there. You just do a quick search for @Your End Step on Facebook. While you're there, you do the same thing for Comic Town Gaming Center. Give them a quick like and get them all updated on the events that they have. You can also download the podcast from various resources, such as your iTunes on your phone or your computer, what have you. You can give us a review on there as well. That really helps us out with visibility, and it's a great way to provide feedback. You can also download us via the Google Music app and from mtgcast.com, which is a great way to find other wonderful Magic the Gathering podcasts. If you want to reach out to us, feel free to do so on Twitter. We are @YourEndStep on Twitter, and you could also just shoot us an email, which is just @YourEndStep@gmail.com. So that's the great way to reach out to us with any sort of feedback. We did get a lot of positive feedback this weekend as well, so we'll want to give a shout out to all of our Twitter follows that did decide to give us a shout out, give us some props, give us some encouragement over the weekend. We really do appreciate it. It's awesome to see all you guys reach out to us and really support us when we are playing in tournaments and doing well. So that does keep us going. So we really thank you for that so much. But that is going to be everything for this week's @Your End Step. You have a great one. Bye.